Swedish, you know that language spoken by those attractive people in Scandinavia with roots to those friendly old Vikings? I started a 30-day challenge to learn Swedish, with the first video already out about the first 7 days of that language learning journey. Just as a recap, the goal is to learn Swedish as best as I can in the span of 30 days, with the goal of having a conversation in Swedish after 30 days with a Swedish native, Josephine, just as I tried to have at the end of the 7 days. At the end of the challenge, after I show you guys the conversation in Swedish, I'll also review my skill level and the methods I used to see what could have gone better and to maybe give some tips along the way there too. The reason why I started this challenge is explained in that first video, but it mostly has to do something with my name.
My name is Jeff.
As well as being inspired by self-dev YouTube superstar Nathaniel Drew. I myself have a Belgian-German background which already led me to speak 4 languages, being Dutch, German, French, and English. If you're not up to speed with everything so far and you would like to be, then I highly recommend watching that first video, since you can also clearly see the skill level that I'm at after those first 7 days and with that first conversation that I had. Now, to pick up where we left off, I continue to struggle and work my way through this new language by using the methods I described in the 7-day video. That means using Google to translate words in simple sentences, to also put words in a document to read over. I'm also consulting grammar websites to get some basic understanding of grammar and answers for some grammatical questions I have. Something that came back several times, for example, is just generally understanding how the present and the past works and just the conjugation of some verbs. Because obviously, if you're trying to tell something about yourself that happened to you in the past, you need to be able to actually say it with a conjugated verb in the past tense. I also still use Duolingo on a daily basis just for some more lighthearted and playful ways of learning and revising stuff that I learned. The big one, of course, still is watching YouTube videos just to learn vocabulary, learn simple sentences, and immerse myself a bit more in simple conversations held by Swedish natives. I was also meeting up with my teacher on italki several times for conversation sessions to practice speaking with an actual native speaker. I was also still using Anki flashcards to revise and learn new vocabulary and simple sentences. On top of that, as a fun little addition, I also still listen to some Swedish songs. All of these still work pretty well together. My favorite of this list is probably still italki, because you just get to speak with an actual Swedish native, a teacher, and you just learn how to speak the language by having conversations as best as you can. A fun little extra bonus that I also learned about when I was doing italki sessions with Frederick, my teacher, was just, I was curious. I asked for how to curse in Swedish. So that's how I learned to say something like "Vilket jävla svin du är," just as one little example. Don't repeat this, of course. It's only for very special circumstances, if you feel the need to, because of certain circumstances in the universe. The most used one though, just like I said, is still YouTube. I spend quite a lot of time just watching YouTube whilst I ride my bike to learn vocabulary and just watching and listening to simple Swedish conversations. Now I also added 3 more methods to this list during my 30-day challenge. One is Audible and listening to a simple Swedish story audiobook, where a narrator goes over 5 different stories about 20 to 30 minutes each, as well as providing a list of vocabulary to go along with each chapter. I got this audiobook by using a free credit that I still had on my account, and I just listened to it while I was going on walks in between work. The second new extra method is Netflix. I start watching Madagascar in Swedish with Swedish subtitles whilst I was sitting on my bike during the 3rd week of the challenge. It doesn't account for a lot of time, but it was a nice little addition to change things up a bit and do that in a more entertaining way, I guess. Plus, I've been wanting to rewatch Madagascar for a while now.
I like to move it, you like to move it.
The third one is Bilinguapp, which allows you to read news articles in the language that you're learning with audio, and where you also have this function where you can select words, add it to a glossary, so you can look over that glossary and just review and study those words at any given time. Now, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the progress during those 30 days and just diving into like every single part of the process there. These methods speak for themselves quite easily, and it's just safe to say that I made slow and steady progress day after day. I had days where I was a bit less motivated and just a bit more of a lazy student, but on average, I studied about 1 to 1.5 hours a day during the whole of the 30-day challenge. Now let's go over the main struggles, because this might be interesting for you if you're trying to learn Swedish or if you're about to start, or just with any language in general, to just get an idea of where potential pitfalls could be. Mainly, and that's not a big surprise, a problem for me was pronunciation. Kept coming back to that and just struggled to like say words, because Swedish is crazy for having insane words sometimes to pronounce. Just as an example, a simple word like nurse would be something like, let me read this now because I'm still struggling with this word, for example. Sjuksköterska. Sjuksköterska. Yeah, it's not easy. Even something like 27. 27, which honestly almost sounds Mandarin. Apart from pronunciation, it's also just grammar mistakes, which makes sense. In the beginning, language is always hard in terms of like understanding conjugation, tenses, word order. My basis of vocabulary is also a bit of a crutch, but that's not an exceptional or unexpected one for that matter. It's normal that it takes some time to build vocabulary when you're learning a new language, and it's not really something that you can rush through. You can only learn so many words at any given day, and it's just a slow process of building and building and building some vocabulary and just like making slow and steady progress there to just stack on the words, basically. Language learning in general is also just not something to rush, so you shouldn't expect to become super proficient in a very short amount of time. It takes time, and it also takes time for your brain to process things. Now, that's basically all I'm gonna say for now. Let's just dive into the results after 30 days of this challenge and using the methods that I described. Let's see what the conversation looks like with Josephine.
Hej,
hur mår du?
jag mår bra. Jag är lite trött. Hur mår du?
Jag mår bra. Jag är lite trött också, men allt är bra. Jag ser det på videor på YouTube.
Ja.
Kanske människor pratar rikssvenska, men kanske de pratar svenska från Malmö eller från norra Sverige.
Ja.
Så det är lite svårt. Men ja, igen, om de pratar lite långsammare, det är okej för mig.
Ja. Jag ser att du har en ukulele i bakgrunden. Spelar du ukulele? Eller är det en gitarr?
Lite, ja.
Ja, bara.
Okej, super. Är det din hobby?
Ja, ibland.
Ibland, okej. Ja, samma för mig.
Ja, den hänger mest på väggen nu. Men jag spelar mest gitarr och piano.
Piano. Jag tycker om piano, men jag kan inte spela piano. Vilken typ av låtar spelar du?
Det är blandat. Lite ny musik och lite klassisk och så. Men jag måste lära mig läsa noter igen.
Läsa noter? Vad betyder läsa noter?
Läsa noter är, du vet, papper med...
läsa... ja, okej. Jag förstår.
Och spela efter det när man kollar.
Okej. Jag är lite trött också eftersom jag gjorde en cykelutmaning för 30 dagar. Jag gjorde 2500 kilometer.
Oj, på 30 dagar?
Ja, dag 30 var igår. Jag gjorde 200 kilometer för dag 30, så min ben gör ont. Ja, mina ben gör ont.
Vad har du cyklat då?
Här på min... jag har en home trainer.
Aha, okej, så inte utomhus?
Nej. Vi hade mycket snö, så
Jaha.
det var inte möjligt. Kan du säga på engelska på 20 sekunder om min nivå är okej eller inte?
Ja, absolut.
Yeah, so if you want, just like,
yeah.
What do you think after 30 days? Was that okay as a Swedish native?
Yeah, I think I'm really impressed actually. I think the level is good and you have a lot of vocabulary and the pronunciation is good. Needs some working, but it's getting there.
That's great. Yeah, awesome.
So, good job, really.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for helping me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was it. I'm quite happy with how our conversation went. I definitely still made quite a couple of mistakes, but in the end, it's about speaking a language in such a way that the other person understands you. I think I managed to do that and still cover a couple of different topics that I wanted to talk about. Josephine, thank you again for helping me out with this challenge. She also adjusted her level a bit to mine by just speaking a little slower than she usually does. But that's also quite normal if you're speaking to someone that's noticeably a beginner in the language that you're a native in. I just think in general that it goes to show that you can make quite significant progress in the span of 30 days if you just apply yourself for a bit. I spent about 50 to 60 hours of learning Swedish in that whole month, and I think I would categorize myself as being an A1 level on the way to becoming an A2 level. My vocabulary base is around 1,000 to 1,300 words, and I did 2 online tests as well afterwards to see what my level would be according to those tests, and they also categorized me as like A1, A2 level, so that kind of makes sense, and I'm very happy with that. In the span of 30 days, that means that I can already have like a couple of basic conversations and I just understand basic Swedish, and I could basically live there and survive without dying in case no one speaks English there. But obviously everyone speaks English in Sweden, but you know, just in that hypothetical case, I could survive. Now reviewing my methods. I think they worked reasonably well for me, the methods I described earlier, but that's because I like an unstructured approach personally. But I do, however, think that it would probably have been more efficient if I had a more structured approach. So if there's any tip that I can get out of this, or anything that I'm going to do moving forward, is just dive into it a bit more in a structured way, basically. For example, grammar, I ordered a booklet online that is about Swedish grammar, and I want to dive into that just in a more structured way so I can like build the foundations of this language a bit better and just not do all kinds of things and hit it from different angles, which also works and just like immerses yourself in the language, which is in the end a very good way of learning a language, just immersing yourself as much as possible. But there's this element of, you know, structured learning that is also still needed, I think. And I think my approach just generally missed a little bit of that, or didn't have enough of it anyways. Now at this point, I'm just happy that I can see tangible, useful results already after 30 days. And there's just a whole new world of culture that has opened up for me, which is just the best part of it all. On that note, I want to thank you for watching, and I just want to ask you, like, if you're learning a language watching this video, what language is it? Is it Swedish? Is it something else? I would love to know, so let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you have ideas for other challenges I should try out, or ideas that you come up with, definitely let me know in the comments too. And if I can fit it into my life, my work life as a videographer and running a video production company, as well as doing YouTube on the side, then I would definitely look into doing that. So just let me know in the comments. And yeah, just make sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. That just signals to the YouTube overlords that, you know, this video is worth watching, and that definitely just also gives a boost to the channel and to the work that I'm creating. That being said, thanks again for watching. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Bye.